Hey, how are
You
you?
got a new background too. Look at that. Did Sean do that
Yes,
for you?
I'm almost there. In
Almost.
Okay.
Finland currently, but almost in space.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Thank you
Well,
so much for having me. And yes, it will be nice to open up a little bit of this phenomenon called space tourism, because we are having the word tourism in this wording, which is something that we all, maybe the ones who are not in the tourism industry, like in myself.
Yeah.
As it was mentioned, I do teach, I do lecture, I do research. I have been a tourism researcher since 1997, when I went to university in London, called Westminster University, to study tourism and planning. So I've been doing tourism research for almost 30 years. And so my background is heavily on tourism industry planning and such. So this is a new angle to space industry. You usually have people coming from the tech, some kind of technical something to relate it to like astronauts. So this is a new angle completely. We are bringing now the world's second biggest industry to the space environment. So there is actually some kind of infrastructure, but we have on the soil of the planet. We have had for a couple of hundred years since the railway development started in the UK in the late 1900s. So this is exactly what we are now with this new space developments that we are to carry ordinary people to space environment. So we are kind of utilizing the similar kind of time parts that railway industry had 200 years ago, when the first mass phase started, that you actually had a vehicle that was able to transport many people at once to a certain destination. So also with the aviation industry, but only started 100 years ago. We are seeing similar kind of parts that we did only 100 years ago when aviation started. It was first the activity for the elite who were able to afford the tickets. There were only a couple of vehicles that you were able to utilize and use. But then suddenly, just after some decades, we started to have mass tourism phase. So we are kind of seeing the similar development parts now with what we have already seen with some other big transportation industries. So kind of when we think of space tourism via that kind of lens of the development, how it started, it's kind of starting to be easier to understand. Obviously, we are dealing with space environment which is not meant for human body. So we have a little bit of a problem here, bringing the human body to now an environment that is very hostile. We are not really meant to be in that environment for a long time. There have been a lot of studies already highlighting that we may lose eyesight or whatever else, like the bone density, if we are there for too long. So obviously we have these bodily issues to really solve at some point as well. But when we don't think of the body thing, if we are able to create some kind of a similar environment to what we have now in Earth, obviously we need then some infrastructure that is supporting that. So that's of course then what we need to first, when we are building up, let's say a lunar base, or then maybe in 25 years time, what Elon Musk is planning, that we have a Mars base.
Right.
So we definitely, when we are thinking of the infrastructure phase, which is now the first one, that you were already talking, that we are going to have robots there to work and building up, that is definitely what we are going to need if we ever have humans there. Whoever works there, they will need to have some kind of bodily protection, because we can't be outside. So every kind of industry that relates to bodily functioning of humans, I think that's something that needs to really be there in the first infrastructure phase. Then when you think of bringing tourists, it's now I'm writing this new book. I have been written many books, and my book came out 2020 called Sustainable Space Tourism, an introduction. So that came out in the UK just handily, I think it was 1 year before 2021, when all these space companies managed to have their first flight. to the suborbit. So we are talking about a 20-year development scale that they all had. All these companies, we are talking SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, and Blue Origin, they were already established after the millennium. And it took all of them about 20 years to actually get their product into the environment that it was meant to be. So it is because they are joining now the tourism industry, they are joining the aviation industry as we speak. There are a lot of laws and regulations when you are now dealing with ordinary people who are not wanting to die when they literally go to have the experience. They want to be secure, they want to trust the equipment. Then you have all these, insurance policies, all kinds of different things that you need to meet, that you're actually able to have the permission to even be a tourism provider. We are also thinking of now we have this kind of Wild West moment for space environment. It's basically, let's say, there is no really legislation. The only thing that applies is like the maritime laws, literally, that we have on the oceans. So that's something, obviously, now when you have tourism industry joining, tourism industry is highly regulated. When we think of aviation industry, that's even more highly. So when we have this launch, we have literally, there are moments in the beginning that the rocket that carries people is in the same environment that we have airplanes flying. And that industry is very heavily regulated. So you can't really have suddenly this other industry in the same exact environment without any laws and legislation.
Right. The planes are going this way and we're going
that way. And also because they are literally in the first 10 kilometers, they are having the same altitude. So that's why this is a very, now when you think of how to develop tourism, how to really kind of start scaling and how to bring it kind of the infrastructure, you need to start now thinking of but whoever is now already operating in some of these environments. So the launch part, you already have aviation industry laws. You need to have a spaceport first in the soil of Earth that you are actually leaving for this trip. Is it then a business trip that you go there to be a worker for let's say you have a lunar base? If you go there for work purpose, you are classified as a business tourist. And if you go there for visiting the one who is working there, it's called a friends and relatives tourism.
So
I wanted to bring that up because it's interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned the different kinds of classifications of tourists, because I know since this whole tourism thing started in the United States in particular, some people who've actually been to ISS bristled at the idea of being called a tourist. People like Richard Garriott in particular, who's been up there a couple of times, they were doing experiments. They were actually doing stuff. I don't know if they got paid for it, but people paid to have him do their experiments for them for a week and a half on ISS. And no, he wasn't just what you think of as a tourist who's kind of sitting back and sipping a cocktail and watching, the world go by as you orbit the Earth. This was something. He was working hard, and he lost several pounds, I guess, while he was up there doing this. And so they tried to come up with some other term like space flight participant or something like that. So it's interesting that you mentioned there may be different types of tiers of different kinds of travelers and what they might be doing and how long they might be staying.